Hi guys, I'm Chaitanya Jain. Welcome to this session of Senior Speak from SPARC Hansraj. I'll be speaking about my experience today and certain decisions and certain career choices that I've made. Let's hope all of you gain something out of this. So the first question, briefly about myself. I graduated from Hansraj in 2018, post which I went on to do my MBA from IIM Lucknow. And post IIM Lucknow, I'm joining Bain and Company as a junior consultant now. Apart from these, I also cleared my CFA L1 exam during MBA, and I cleared the CA IPCC during Hansraj, which we'll talk about in the next questions. So, okay, how and when did I decide to go for MBA after my CA? Actually, so it panned out like this. I cleared my CA IPCC both groups in November 16, which was in my third semester. After which, in fourth semester from April, May to around July, I interned in a couple of places. One of them was a small CA firm, wherein I interned for audit purpose, and we actually went for a statutory audit of a bank, and I learned a lot of my Excel skills and auditing procedures there. Then further, I went on to EY to do an internship in the international taxation department, and most of the people in that department were CAs. So I learned a lot about tax there. And after both of these internships, actually, I realized certain things. So firstly, was CA challenging? Yes. Was CA interesting? Yes. Did CA actually involve a lot of your intellectual, capacity and your problem solving? Yes. But was CA also specialized in one field? Yes. And that is what really concerned me after my experience with the IPCC exam and these internships. I realized that actually, CA really focuses on one thing, which is the regulatory aspect of things. And while all of the other things are there, where it is intellectual, it is tough, it is challenging, and it is fun also. I just did not want to specialize at that phase in my life in one point, in one thing. And CA really gives you that. It gives you expertise in this regulatory aspect. For audit, you know everything about Companies Act and the various audit regulations. For taxation, you know all about the Income Tax Act, the GST Act, the Excise, Customs, all of these acts. But as of me in that stage in life, I just wanted to explore different fields and different business avenues and functions and everything. And then I wanted to figure out what my passion was. I mean, I wasn't really sure if this was something I want to specialize in at a very early age, at a very early point in my career. And so I gave up on CA. It was around in July, I think July 17, when I registered for the CAT for November 17. I enrolled for the last batch of time that year. But yeah, thankfully it panned out. So that was the when and how. Do I plan to complete CA? Not really. If there was no articleship clause, then of course I would have loved to give the CA final exam and get that degree, because the knowledge, of course, is very beneficial, and it was really good knowledge. I mean, you can't deny the fact that CAs actually have a lot of knowledge about all of these topics, whether they are audit or law or tax or cost accounting, everything. Like, they know everything about these topics. So yes, I would love to give those exams, but the 3-year articleship thing is something I'm not willing to do right now. It is too big an investment of time for me to do now. So no, I won't be doing CA now. I don't think so, unless ICAI comes up with some new amendment where it exempts articleship for some people. No, I'm not doing that. Okay. How have I been associated with PNG? So PNG, I was associated in the form of the Emerging Leaders Program, which is basically a 3-day boot camp wherein they invite around 40-ish people in total across 7 B schools of the country to their headquarters in Mumbai before actually we start our MBA. And there they do a lot of things. So they tell us about how PNG works, how decisions are made, how they do their analysis. They showed us their offices, their processes, their warehouse also actually. They showed us their research projects and how they actually come up with innovations in products and distribution and sales and everything. And finally, the most interesting part was that they gave all of us a live problem, some case that PNG was working on, but it was a problem they had not yet solved. And they gave us lots and lots of data around that. And they asked us to give us some kind of analysis or some kind of recommendation as to what they should do to solve that problem. That was a really fun thing to do. Of course, the aim of this program was to just evaluate some people and get to some people who are really interested in PNG and give them pre-placement interviews. But I think I learned a lot from this program. Let's just come to this, which is the next part, which says, how did this PNG bootcamp and my EY internship help me? So I won't say there are any, explicit learnings, because these are not any courses or any educational things that you do. However, I still do believe that, internships especially, and also of course programs and experiences like this really add a lot of value to your life. I mean, the most important that I think these things do is that they help you align yourself in your career. For example, the internship at EY helped me understand that, CA is not the thing for me. This PNG thing helped me really, identify FMCG as a market and as an industry that I could really explore, because I enjoyed being there and enjoyed seeing what all happens there. So this is one really important thing that these experiences and internships teach you. They tell you what you want to do. They give you an idea of what you don't want to do. So this is most important. However, you also, of course, learn a lot of other things like managing and working with people, interpersonal skills, and just you gain perspective on a lot more things the more you get these experiences. So of course you have that. Yeah. Okay. So what is the foremost thing IIMs look for? This is a very most asked for kind of question. I can't tell you one thing that they look for, because there is no one thing they look for. They look for a host of different things. However, I think they look for two main areas in any candidate. So one of them is what that person wants to do, say 5 years down, or whatever, what that person wants to do after their MBA. Like what is their aspiration, and how do they think that an MBA is going to help them in that aspiration. So that is one thing they look at, and these are answers which are very important in your interview, because these are almost always asked, and these actually are important from an evaluation perspective. On the other hand, they look for what have you done in life till that point, which proves that you actually have the caliber or the intention to actually gain from this MBA and move on to benefit in your career in the future. So these are broadly two things they look at. Now they can look at whatever and everything to get these two answers, right? For example, to get your previous experience, they can always look at your academics. They can look at your previous positions of responsibility. They can look at your internships. They can look at your work experience. For your future, they can always look at how much you've thought about your career plans and what you want to do, and does it really in some sense map out with what you've done and what you've learned in life till now. Because if you're a commerce graduate and suddenly you say, I want to start a technology or a physics related startup, that somewhere would be questionable, because how will you learn physics? So these are two things they broadly look at, like what you want to do and how you will gain from an MBA, and what you've done till that point in life. Now there is no one thing here. So to answer the question, there is no one thing that they look for. Um, the other part is how much do past academics affect you? um, so this thing also varies across IIMs. For example, you would have heard that IIMs like Calcutta give much more importance to CAT results, and so even if you have somewhat lesser academic scores, you can scrape through and get an admit if you have good enough CAT scores. And similarly for Ahmedabad and Lucknow, you often hear that academics is often seen as very important. So even if you have amazing CAT scores, if you have not very good academics, somewhere, I mean, all of these are conjectures. These are public opinions. I don't know what actually happens inside admissions offices, but that's what they say, that they place very high importance on past academics. So do they affect you? Yes, they do. Of course they do. But just my 2 cents on this is to not think about academics at all, because past academics is probably the one thing that you cannot change at all, right? They have happened, they were in the past, and they are what they are now. You should always focus on what you can do now, which are two things. So one of them is your current graduation score for the current or future semesters, which you can look to improve so as to improve your overall CGPA. And the second, of course, is your CAT score. So these are two things you should really focus on. Thinking about your past academics and whether or not they will affect you is not going to change anything right now. So it's better to just leave that. Just focus on your CAT prep. I think that would help. Okay. So skills which are underrated but essential for industry. Okay. This is a broad question. Mostly skills would vary with industries, but okay, 2-3 things which I think would be very relevant across industries are first would be problem solving. So for any kind of job you join, for any profile or any role you go into, you're always evaluated for, can you actually solve a problem? And what does that mean? For example, you have a lot of data in your job. Someday you, for a new project or for a new product, you have a lot of data. Okay, you have a lot of other industry information, you have past data, you have a lot of variables with you. Now how do you use that to actually chart out a path to answer the question that is in front of you? Now what they want to see, what you need to have is actually a process to get to the answer. They do not check if your answer is correct, they just want to see how you get to the answer. Like, do you actually think logically? Do you actually involve all of the data which is involved and not ignore some data entirely? Can you actually think of all the alternative scenarios that are existing and think of the, what is the path to get to the right scenario? What are the key variables you should think about? Things like those. And unfortunately, these are things which are not really taught to you in academics yet. These are things you pick up, which is where again the internships and experiences point comes up, because you learn these things there when you actually have experience. And also you learn these things in consulting prep, if that is something you want to do. So that is one skill. Second, I would say thinking on your feet. So it was always important, but now in the COVID phase, we can see its importance even more, which is that there are always situations in the business world, in industry, where some data will change at the last moment, or you'll have some new development that just comes up with respect to your project at the last moment, or you have some kind of new opinion or some new data or some new some any new variable that comes in, say, right before an important meeting. Now you have prepared for that meeting as per a set method. You have your presentations ready, you have your analysis, your recommendations ready, and now that data point changes everything. And now if you don't include that, you are basically like giving an outdated recommendation which will not be of any use. So what they require from you is basically to think on your feet. How can you always stay up to date, always update all of your data, all of your recommendations, everything with respect to the new things that are happening, the new data that is coming in, the new variables that are just emerging out of nowhere, which keep happening, by the way. So that is an important skill you need to have, being able to adapt. And you must have often seen in interviews, I'm not sure in MBA interviews, but in job interviews, people give you out of the world absurd questions. They seem like, how would they even be relevant in your job? But that is again the same thing. They don't want to see what your answer is, they want to see if you can actually think on your feet and come up with an answer. So that is a skill set which is important across industries. And lastly, of course, we have interpersonal skills. So everywhere you'll be dealing with people. So just people management is something you really need to know, not just at the individual level, which is just maintaining good relationships with your mentors, with your colleagues, with your managers, but also at the at a higher level, I would say, in terms of, say, meetings. Because for whatever recommendation or whatever work you do in the future, you'll always have five different people with five different opinions on it, and you'll always need to onboard all of them to that one answer, so that everyone, only when everyone has consensus can you actually move ahead with anything, right? So people management comes out as a very important thing you need to have. So that is something you need to have. Of course, there is again no set method to learn. You can learn through internships, you can learn through your society work wherein you work with people, you can learn through actual on the job, what do you say, actual learning on the job, basically. But yeah, this is an important thing to have. You need to actually be able to align all the different perspectives and all the different opinions into one final direction that you want everyone to go into. So that is another important skill. Okay, key rules in my life while making any decision. I don't have any written rules as such. However, I would like to share a couple of things which I keep in mind. Um, I try to ensure I have these two things before any decision. One is staying true to myself. And while I know this sounds a little cliched, but this is very important, I would say, because I always think if for whatever decision I'm making, is it the thing that I want to do from the core of my heart? Am I really interested in this? Or is it really just a result of peer pressure or societal obligations or something which seems to be the safest thing to do? Because I can do any kind of thing for all of these factors, but after a point of time, this will come back to bite me. You will either be losing interest, you will either be failing in certain exams which you just enrolled in for because your parents said it or because your friends were doing it, or you will just not be good enough at that job which you just took because of job security or because it was the good thing to do. So always think about whether or not that decision is because you want to do it. And that is something that I always keep in mind, and which is why I think I also left CA, because it was the best thing to do at that point. I had actually invested a lot of time also in the foundation and intermediate exams, but I realized I don't want to do this. So, despite all other factors, everyone around me telling me to not leave CA, I did that because I did not want to do that. I realized. And the second thing, which again, not a rule, but something I try to ensure in every decision I make, is to never have vague opinions. So any decision is essentially what? It is a choice between alternative A and alternative B, right? Now, when we make decisions, we think of alternatives A and B as some impression of those that we have in our minds. For example, when I, for example, was thinking about CA versus MBA, I'll have some, impressions in my mind of, okay, MBA gets very high jobs, they are paid well, or, CAs are actually respected a lot. If you have your own practice, you can really make it in life. But these are things which are not really facts. These are not, some concrete things which should be used to make a decision. So always go beyond the cover to the actual book. Never make any decision based on these superficial things. Always talk to people who are working in that job. Always talk to people who have been alumni of those institutions. Like, always get opinions of people who have been there and done that, so that you get actual things, actual outcomes of both of those alternatives, so that you can actually make a good decision. So that is something I always try to do, to not make decisions based on my impressions of those alternatives, but actually get real data on those alternatives. So yeah, any advice that I would like to give aspirants? Okay, just one advice, and which follows from the last point. Please do not do anything because everyone else is doing it. I've seen it too often in life, and I've seen too many people suffering because of it. So when I was in CA coachings during my intermediate phase, I used to see like so many people who are in CA just because their family was forcing them to, or just because they thought this was the easiest thing to do in terms of the most structured thing I would say to do. But I saw most of them, giving 3 attempts, 4 attempts, 5 attempts for the exams, and that was just because, not because they were not capable, but that was because they were just not interested in that. Their passion was not in that. And similarly for CFA, CFA is one thing I think in today's time every other person wants to give. If they are not giving it, I myself was a prey to this thing only. A lot of my friends during my MBA were giving it, and so I decided, okay, why not? But to be honest, that is the worst investment I've made in terms of my career ever. Not because it is not useful. It is a very good program and it is very useful, but only if you want to go there. I did it because my friends were doing it and I had relatively some free time in my life, and so I decided, okay, let's do it. But I'm not going to go in any finance related career. I don't have any kind of finance related aspirations for the future. um, I'm going to go into strategy and consulting, and so that was just something which did not align with me. And so for all of these exams, for CAT also, I mean, most of the people in CAT coachings are those who just want to give CAT because they see it as some kind of shortcut to getting a bigger paycheck, but they won't really survive, first in the MBA program and secondly in that job, if they're actually not interested in that. If their passion lies somewhere else, you would not actually make it big in life with that thing. And even if you do, you'll never be happy. So that is my one and only advice to everyone listening this. um, for whatever exam it is, for whatever career decision is it, please never do it unless you yourself really want to do it. So yeah, that was it from my side. Thank you for listening in, everyone. I hope I was able to answer some of your questions, and I hope all of you got something out of it. Thank you.